Hey, Mastermind.
Hey, Dashier, how are you?
All right, and yourself. Happy
I
Sunday.
I didn't hear you.
I said happy Sunday.
Oh, happy Sunday to you. I may not be on the whole time. I just got out the emergency room. Not feeling well, but I did want to log on. Yeah, I've been having some issues with my breathing, and like some stomach issues. So they gave me a
Oh,
bunch of fluids and some medicines, and I'm at my mom's house now because I don't need to be staying alone.
I really don't think
So,
you need to be on
but
this
I
call, Mastermind. This is get
no,
sometimes you just gotta take a break.
okay,
You
okay. I
can't,
didn't want to
so
miss it.
remember, you tell your clients what's going on. You sick, you checked in, we see you, but please get some rest. You probably got a long week ahead of you too.
Okay. Yeah, I
All
do.
right,
I do. Thank you,
get some
Dr.
rest.
Dear.
Uh-huh.
All right. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
You know you had to get back in and look at the video over.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I know. Thank
Okay.
you. All
Good
right.
night.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All righty. I need everyone to turn their cameras on, please. Thank you. Perfect. Let's see. Who all do I have on the call tonight? Look like it's just I see Amy. Amy is on here twice. Okay, Amy and Amelia. Sorry. Okay. Somebody have some feedback. Okay. All right, y'all. I'm allowing everyone to come in, and I'm a person that I like to start. It is 4:01 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm in the Central Standard Time zone, and I'm Sherry Bogart. I am tonight's tutor or coach rather. Some may or may not know me, but I've been with the company for 3.5 years. Dr. Pam and I actually rotate Sundays out, but she's normally here more Sundays than I am because I have another job as well. Tonight was supposed to be Dr. Pam teaching, but something came up, and so I will be subbing for tonight. Um, Look like there's three people on the call tonight. If you don't know me, I want you to know that this is an interactive, engaged session. I know a lot of people said when you all are with Dr. Pam, she says do not write anything. If you choose to write tonight, it's on you. If that's how you learn, I don't want to take away from it. But I do want to let you know you can always go back and review this video and any material that I put on here tonight, you will have access to it. One of Dr. Pam rules is if you're not going to turn your camera on, then you will get kicked out of the group. So I'm just letting you know that if your camera stays off for so long when I'm doing a check-in and I recognize that your camera is off, then I will actually disconnect you from the call. So with that being said, I have Pamela, Amy, and is it Araya, Asira?
Assyria.
Can I just call you Miss Smith?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I do not want to butcher your name up, and I'm country. I would mess up something. All right, you all. So tonight we are going to be talking about treatment planning. If you all have me on a private session as well, just remember some of the things may appear duplicated sometimes, which it could be, but that's a good thing because repetition is good. So if you hear me say, they're like, what you mean private? Some people I actually do private sessions with as in conjunction with this. Uh, just 1 second. And so I'm sorry, I have to remove people. Um, Sorry, you all. I just had to remove somebody from the group because they didn't have their video on even after I gave the spiel. So again, everything that Jessica, what are you doing
I
here?
got the link, so I was like, do I just jump in? I don't know.
Oh, okay, y'all. Jessica literally. 5 minutes, no longer.
Hmm.
But if you want to be on here, you can. Mastermind is 6, so she won't be here tonight. She was in, but I told her to get off the call. You all, Jessica was one. She's been here with group. And she was also one of my private students. So Jessica, 5 minutes, tell them what has happened
Yes,
in the last week for you.
it has been so surreal to have passed the test on the first try. And it just, like these letters, they mean everything and nothing at the same time. I still feel the same, but I feel like more connected to the field than I ever have been before. I think it's because these letters kind of like legitimize the practice and the profession. Everybody's going around saying I'm a social worker, but they have never done the program that we did or even taking any of the testing. So I really just feel like, a part of like just like this field and this connectedness and community. I've been studying with the same people for such a long time, that it's like starting to feel like, so what do I do now? Because this was just such a big part of my life.
Anyone have questions for Jessica? Was it Tuesday, Jessica?
Yep, it was Tuesday.
She became an LCSW on Tuesday. Y'all, Jessica and I was having private sessions like 2 hours on one day, meeting the next day. We met all the way up to the day before her test. So if you have questions for her, this is the opportunity to ask. Okay.
I guess what did you feel that was like important for you, I guess, the day of the test? Like what was going through your mind? I guess to help you stay focused and remember the things and the tools that they taught you
Yeah,
during the
I
test.
mean, I throughout this process, I guess I've always been a little religious, but I think I leaned more on faith a lot. Because the biggest barrier to the testing and just in terms of like learning the material was me. I was fighting the material the entire time. I was trying to apply logic from being in the field for a number of years as a case manager, then being in the field for a number of years as a licensed social worker. So what I did was, I just let my mind go blank and I just remembered the social worker helping process. And then obviously Dr. Pam and Sherry's words, I wrote a affirmation on my whiteboard. I wasn't going to sit there and write like, dig fast or any of those acronyms because I don't have the mental space for it. What I needed to know was just to apply ethics, right? And every single response really is for the betterment of the client. So I leaned on those. But getting into the right headspace was while I was like in the cab to the place. I was meditating. I got there early so that I wouldn't like be nervous. And then the person was like, "Oh, you can start if you want to." My time to start was 1 o'clock. I got there at 11:30. And I was like, nope, I'm going to use this time to just regulate my body so that I wasn't making any like, rash decisions to going in because I did have extra time. And in the center, everybody's taking different tests. So, like, someone's taking it for cosmetology, somebody's taking it for a different board. You know, was lucky to have those accommodations where I had my own room, but I also made sure that I utilized the time and the breaks and I didn't get caught up on things. And I made sure that I answered every single thing before I moved on to the next. Because once you pass the 85 and then you just hit submit, you could never go back to 85 again, which was starkly different from when I originally took the first L. Was like you could look at the entire exam. You can go back and flag things. So make sure that you do the tutoring part, the tutorial, because that's another thing that people like to skip. But it's minutia information, but just so that you know, because sometimes when you're hitting a strike through, you're actually hitting that response and you're recording that response, which could lead to like careless mistakes. So being somebody like that, I made sure that I was regulated and I came in and I just remembered the social work helping practice because at least on the clinical side, it is not recall like it was on the first exam. It is really application and it's content. And I have a tendency to memorize things. And that's what took me home the first time. I took the L and I passed with a 20-point margin. That was not the case here, but a pass is a pass. So I don't even care. But it was more so like reading the question, putting myself in the STEM, Like, okay, I'm a social worker and I work in this setting and I'm being asked second best, third, whatever, reading it out loud. If you have the ability to read it out loud, the things that I would have never really thought that I would want to do were the things that I did. So like I never was like someone who would like to read out loud, but I was in that tiny box by myself, so I read aloud. Like, I wasn't, you know, people may have these accommodations, they may not have this accommodation, but I would say if you are not in a place where you could read out loud, then make sure that you read the stem twice and you read all the answers before you even attempt to try to apply any logic. If you have the 4 hours, use it. If you have the six, use it.
Thank you, Jessica. Anybody else have any questions? Jessica passed her exam on Tuesday. Any questions you want to ask? All right. Well, she's going to stick with us tonight, but if she wants to hop off, and also while we were in group, maybe 4 weeks ago, Jessica, we had another student and she popped on and she was like, I passed, but she was like, I'm out of here.
Now this is the part where I get to go hang out with my kids, because it's kind of like binge watching a show and then like not knowing what you're gonna do after. So it's now figuring out what the next steps for Jessica LCSW. And knowing that it was exceptionally hard to take this test as a bilingual speaker, because sometimes you're flipping things. So obviously a tip to my bilingual people is just take your time, read it again, because it is a reading comprehension test.
It really is. All right, Jessica. Anytime you
Bye,
want to
good
hop
luck
out. Are
everyone.
you leaving us? Okay, good night.
Treatment planning, no, we're fine. We're good. Miss Sherry, you have
Congratulations
taught me
again.
everything that I need to know for this test. And no doubt, I hope that our professional paths cross again. Because honestly, if I could see myself in a position, it would be tutoring. When I started the L like journey, Miss Sherry was in some of the classes that I was taking, but she was taking them as a LC. So it was a real full circle moment to have seen you as a peer and then to have you as an instructor. And I thank you so much for just taking me on. I know that it was a very last minute thing. I was tutoring with Dr. Pam, but I felt like I needed a little extra. And I felt like the content part I got. Like the answering the questions and the systematic approach definitely was Dr. Pam, and obviously content and lecture, but like really going over the things that I was really fighting against the entire 3 months that I was studying. You made the difference.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
You all can see Jessica interview. We did an interview and it'll be posted and you all can watch it at a later time. Congratulations again,
Thank you so much.
LCSW.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, you all. So I hope that helped motivate you. I always tell people don't get caught up in what the next person is doing because we all have a different path, but we will get there. If you don't know me, I took my LCSW 13 times before I passed. I have no shame, no doubt. I'm glad it happened the way it happened because now I know more. So tonight we're talking about treatment planning. And what I want to say is with treatment planning, this is a big part of what Jessica just talked about. It's part of that social worker helping process. And what you have to understand is that there are stages. So you have your beginning stage, and in the beginning stage of therapy, the three majority things you need to know is that you're going to build a rapport. It's called engagement. Hey girl, how you doing? Hey sir. Hey little boy. Hey little girl. And you identify the client's reason for seeking treatment. Now, of course, they filled out a biopsychosocial culture assessment, and you really should look at that before you start meeting with them, but you're going to also gain a little bit extra when you start talking to them. And then when you all get past that engagement piece, which is like an introduction, then this is where you all start creating a treatment plan. Now we're going to go to the middle part of the treatment, and this is where the work starts taking place. During this part, the middle part of the treatment planning, this is where you are actively engaging in interventions. Remember, intervention is something I'm going to put in place for the client. Not really for the client, but with the client. You're going to come in. I always say you have your students who come in and they're like, I'm having anxiety. So I need an intervention that's going to help me bring my anxiety down. So we talk about deep breathing. We talk about doing hot yoga or running, drinking water when you start feeling intense and things of that nature. And then we're going to go to the last stage, which is this is when we start terminating. We're moving towards termination. But one thing I want you to remember is theoretically, termination starts at the beginning. Like, especially for a hospital social worker, you start terminating as soon as you see that person because you don't know how long you are going to be working with that person. With a person that has a lot of times, if you work for an agency, you may not know the behind the scenes stuff, but the insurance company may only approve for them to come there 5 times. So you're like, why only when you're doing your supervision and your supervisor says you only have 5 times to meet with this person? You're like, why? It's because that's with the insurance or whatever company that's supporting that person, or when the person came and paid their money, they're like, I only can pay for 5 sessions or 5 treatments. And so that's what termination look like. So you have on your assessment, they're only going to be here 5 sessions. So you like, okay, they got anxiety. We in session 2. I really need to be working on how we're going to get this person out of here terminated. So with the termination stage, you focus on strategies for maintaining progress that can be gradually decreased. So if you only have 5 sessions, by session 3, you need to be paying attention to see if those interventions or those strategies are working. And then you got to also look at a good way to approach a client's anxiety, for example, about treatment ending. Is it normal? You want to let your clients know, I think you're in a good place and you can leave. You're taking medication, continue to meet with your doctor every 2 or 3 months, whatever your doctor told you. And if you need to come back, you can come back. Your insurance might not pay for it, but we can do a sliding scale or something like this. But when you're doing that indetermination, it assists the client with building competency, and it lets them know that you really care about them or make them have a sense that you care about them. And it's also letting them understand that they have had some type of change. Any questions about treatment planning in the 3 sections that I just talked about? This is a good, I also want to let you all know that this recording will be available, but this is a safe space. So please, if you have questions, ask. And at any time, if I say something you don't understand, ask me. So these are words that's associated with the stage of treatment planning. So in our early stage, which is the intervention and treatment, Ms. Smith, what is intervention?
A former mode, how we, I guess, treat the patient.
It's what we
A
put it
tool
in
that we
place.
use.
So I'm going to let you read the words associated with the early stage.
Joining, assessing, prioritizing, partialization, goal setting, objectives, trust building, problem identification, treatment planning, and reason for referral.
Okay. So thank you. Joining is me and the client coming together. Assessing is you as the therapist or the social worker asking questions. Why are you here? Are things getting better? Prioritizing is asking the client pretty much like, okay, is this working for you? Do we need to switch it up? Do we need to make goal 2, goal 1? And so those are things that you assess. Partialization, do anybody know what partialization is? Who don't know? Raise your hand. So that means y'all know, because okay. So partialization is when your client comes to you, if they only have 5 sessions and you press for time and they're like, oh, I'm having problems with my kids. I think I'm about to lose my job. I'm going through menopause. You're like, okay, so which one you want to work on first? So that's what partialization is. You got to figure out which one is going to go first. It almost seems like prioritizing, but it's not. And then goal setting, I always use this as an example. When we were in college, we had to set a goal. How are we going to study? Are you going to study 2 hours a week? Are you going to have a study group? So just like life, you have to set goals. And then you have your objectives. Those are the things that you're going to put in place to meet your goal. Trust building. This is at the job of the the clinician. You build that rapport. Your clients can sense if they can trust you or if they like you or if they do not like you. So you have to be honest. One of the things that the test quizzes us for or test our knowledge on the exam is asking us, are we being honest with our clients? Problem identification. They come to you and tell you this is what's going on. Then you have treatment planning and reason for referral. The reason for referral, the referral can come to you from a doctor, from uh, another agency, self-referral. It could be a variety of things. And so the next thing is the middle stage, intervention and treatment. Miss Amy, I'm going to get you to read the words that's associated with middle stage. She was like, I knew you was about to call me. Let me help you. You're on mute.
Oh, there it goes. Okay. Now I lost my screen. What in the world just happened?
Oh, you can't see us?
I had it for, there it is. Okay.
Okay.
My computer and I are not on good terms tonight. So middle stage intervention and treatment associated words is resistance, tasks, resolution, implementation, rehearsal, replacing, learning, teaching, change, and better.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So resistance is normally like the first thing when they come in, even though they come in on their own, it's still some resistance. They don't know you. And so they got to get to feel comfortable with you. And then you start putting tasks in place. And then you come up with a resolution. Your implementation is we're putting things, we're looking at those goals and we're working on them. Rehearsal may require you helping the client. Let me show you what we come up with, but they're like, I still don't understand. So let's practice. Let's do some role playing. Replacing, this is when you have to change. They're like, okay, this intervention we put in place, it's just not working for me. It was suggested that I get up at 7 o'clock every morning. I just cannot do it. So you replace that goal with something else. Learning and teaching, that happens for both the client as well as the counselor or social worker. Change, this is again, we have to make some modifications, and better is to make the modifications better. And it'll all make sense because I say the same thing 5 different ways. So termination, Miss Pamela.
Reviewing, planning, anticipatory guidance, regressing, successful, achievement, completion, maintenance, and lost.
Okay. Just 1 second, you all. Stop. My phone kept ringing, was in the other space. So when you're reviewing, you're looking over things, you have your planning. I know some of this looks redundant right now. And then you have regressing. That's when your client goes backwards. And on the exam, what I want you all to understand with regressing is that sometimes when your clients know that the sessions are about to be over, and now that they're comfortable with you, they'll start going backwards. And then they'll start doing things like trying to stretch out their time. They might keep missing sessions so that they can try to stay a little bit longer. So be mindful of that. I'll tell you about anticipatory guidance in a minute. And then successful, that's at the end when you're like, okay, I know things have gone well. And your client also feels really good about everything. So you're like, okay, you really need to be gone and that everything will be okay. And then we have achievement. This is a phase almost. Like when your clients start really feeling good about themselves, they can see it. They're like, oh, wow, I've really achieved that goal. And then you have completion. And this is, we're at the end, everything, even if the person wanted to stay, if they cannot validate the reason why they need to stay, then it's completed. Again, it may only be that the insurance is going to pay. Now, if they want to stay a little bit longer, they'll have to pay for the sessions. Maintenance Maintenance is where the client really needs to, the phase that they need to stay in. Sometimes well, I would say a lot of times you can't put a time frame on maintenance. You don't know how long somebody's going to be able to maintain that behavior. But what you do want to let them know that, hey, everything that we've been doing in sessions, just keep doing it on your own. Pretend like you're still coming here meeting with me. And then you have loss. Loss is in the sense of you and the client are about to separate. So you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm losing. We shouldn't be using the word friend, but it's like you're losing that person. And so that makes a person have a setback as well. Now, with anticipatory guidance, it's just proactive counseling in essence. And so that's us making sure we're guiding our clients in the best direction. If you don't understand something, let them know. Be honest and go get the help. Questions, comments, or concerns about the beginning, middle, and the termination phases. Okay.
Now, with the regression, wouldn't there, and I know many that don't like the word self-sabotaging, but wouldn't that be in that same area where with regression, where that might be a little self-sabotaging as they're terminating?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the thing. So a lot of clients, I'm glad you brought that up. And so with that being said, what can happen with the self-sabotaging? You can have some clients that come to you're like, because you are preparing them. You're like, oh, next week is our final session. And then they come into the final session and they're like, oh, and they're looking all gloomy. And you're like, so you're assessing them. You go, so what's wrong with you? They're like, I think I'm just going to kill myself if, I can't come back here anymore. And you're like, okay, so you at this time on the exam, we don't act like a crisis assessor. We tell them, okay, let me get you some help. So you're going to refer them out, but you cannot close their case. They're going to go to inpatient or they're going to go to a crisis place, get assessed. And then once they complete that, they're going to come back to you. You're going to have another session with them, and you might have to do it for free. This is the real world. You might have to do that last session for free, and then you see if they're stable, and then you let them go. Now, if they continue to say they're going to commit suicide every time you get ready to discharge them, then you assist them by offering a sliding scale if they can't afford that, because this is in your disclaimer before you first meet with them. Then you say, hey, I can assist you with finding an agency, and you do a warm transfer to a community agency that will provide the service for free. Did that make sense what I just said? Anybody have any questions about what I just said? Because it is a test question. Okay. So, next thing here. Uh-oh. My thing just got real wonky.
Yeah, it's doing it on my side too.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Like it zoomed in, like when you were talking, termination section just went like way in. I'm like, whoa.
You probably don't see it, but I'm going to make it appear again. Okay. Are you all able to see the screen?
Wow. That's really zoomed in.
Is it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So are you all able to see? Okay. So the next area that we're going to go into is some test questions. Do everyone have pen and paper? Yeah, this thing got real wonky on me. I cannot even see you all, and this is normally not like Zoom. But so anonymously, does everyone pretty much have pen and paper? Yes, no.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to give you all about 3 minutes, and I want you just to write
I'm
number
coming
one.
right back. I need to get pen and paper.
Okay.
Now,
Um,
how many? I'm seeing 1 through 6. Should we be seeing more than that?
we're only gonna do 1 through 5 anyway.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And so what I need you all to do is go ahead, do 1 through 5, and you're going to write the stage that you believe it is.
I don't see it anymore. I
It
see a split.
disappeared?
Yeah, I see a split screen with you and something, the page, but it's
Was anyone else having the same problem?
Yes.
Okay.
I saw it on my end. I'm not sure.
Okay. I stop. Are you all able to see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
one
So
of the
just 1 through 5. All righty. So I think I'm gonna have to join from my phone because I cannot see. That is the craziest thing. All right, because I cannot see you all, this is going to be crazy. I think it was Amelia, Amy,
Mm-hmm.
Pamela, Miss Smith. Is there another person on here?
Somebody by the name of Gloria.
Huh?
I see somebody with the name of Gloria.
Okay. This is weird. So I'm sorry, the people names that I do not call, I'm sorry. It's because I cannot see you all for some reason. It's not even showing me your names. It's only showing. Okay. I had to go out. It's Amy, Smith, Gloria, and Pamela. All righty. So in that order, anything we do tonight is going to be Amy, Miss Smith, Gloria, and Pamela. Did you all remember that? Okay, I take that as a yes. So, Amy, what is the first one?
The middle stage.
It is. All righty then. Miss Smith, what's the second one?
Early,
That's correct. And the next person, Gloria, what is the third one?
Um, Learning, teaching. Probably middle.
That is correct. And Pamela, what is the next one?
Is it termination?
That's correct. Y'all did a good job. So we're not going to go into the rest of them, but again, you will have access to this. And these are the other ones. And once you finish, you can email me and then I will give you the answers. So was that a challenge for you all? Ms. Smith, was that a challenge just looking at those?
some of them were, so number 4, what was number 4?
Termination.
Okay, and that was, what was number 4?
Let me go back.
I think I got that one wrong.
Number 4 was reviewing.
Okay, I got that one wrong. I did middle.
Okay. Anyone else everybody got them correct or did someone get them wrong? Okay, good job then. So again, I would send you that entire list and you can just, I think I'm like Coach Sherry. once you finish answering the questions. One thing you'll notice, I never give answers to questions when I give a full assignment, and you all have until Tuesday to send me an email and ask for them. All right. We are about to go in another area. Questions, comments, or concerns so far? So, do you all know about the id in the ego and the superego?
Mhm.
And this may be redundant for some people, which is a good thing. Gloria, tell me what you know about the id, ego, and superego.
Okay. The id, the ego, and the superego have to do with Freud's psychosexual
Mm-hmm.
stages of development. And so the id is the pleasure principle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the ego is what monitors between the id and the ego, I mean, and the superego. And the superego is the ego is what is like the moral part of it, like you shouldn't do
Mm-hmm.
that. And the it is what says, pleasure principle, just go for it. So the ego tries to monitor that.
You
Those
did a great job. Thank you.
you.
Clap a hand clap. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I should. I've been in this for a very long time, so
Girl, keep going. And exactly what she said. I think sometimes it helps when you all hear it from each other. Some people say it will, some people say it's the opposite. But as it was said about Gloria, the id, like this man here, and I do not want to offend anyone, but Trump has he's an id person. So if you want to be like, how do I remember that? And the id is a person who wants everything. They want it when they want it, how they want it, and they're going to go by all means necessary to get it. Again, my disclaimer is I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying that so as a teachable moment. And as it says here, the quotes, it's all yours. Forget about your brother. Keep it all to yourself. So it's like, nope, it's all about me. And so, one thing you have to understand, there's a thing called the pleasure principle that goes with the id. And all of us actually have our id comes out occasionally, like, I want that BMW and I'm going to get it by any means necessary. I want my LC, I want my LM, I want my LB, and so I'm going to get it by any means necessary. And so, when you're doing it, it's like I want this and I'm not going to be pleased until I get it. If I want a slice of pizza and then I go eat just a piece of bread with some cheese on it, that's not what I wanted. And your id is not going to be satisfied until you get that slice of pizza. And then we go over to the ego. It says, I know mom gave me this candy to share with my brother. We should split it evenly. And so your ego is going to say, hey, you have morals. And mama said, give your brother a piece of candy. But sometimes with your ego, what you're doing is you're mediating. You're like, dang, a 5-year-old kid really does not want to share their piece of candy, but they're going to do it anyway. And so that's when the ego kicks in and is like, I got a piece, I can break it in half and give it to my brother. And then we have the super ego. And the super ego says, you know that your brother loves candy. You should give it all to him and not be greedy. And so your super ego goes like with your morals, your values, the things that you have learned. You probably be like, you know what? I give him the candy. I'm going to get 2 pieces back in return. So anyone have questions about the id, the ego, or the super ego? Okay. So everyone knows what the id, the ego, and the super ego is. Miss Smith, what's the super ego?
The super ego is pretty much kind of like help you rationalize some of the, I guess, the thoughts that you have. So I guess, like you said, with the candy, instead of saying that, hey, maybe I can have a small piece and give him some, it's just like, let me give all the candy to the younger brother, and I don't need any.
Miss Pamela, what is the id?
Okay. The it is pretty much the example. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much the example of Trump. It's a person that is a very impulsive, probably entirely unconscious, irrational. We are pretty much um, go for our instincts.
Okay, perfect. And Miss Amy, what is the the ego?
Monitors the id for the pleasure principle and the superego for the morals.
Okay, perfect. You all doing good. So when you see test questions, you should be like, you know what, I know this, and don't second guess yourself. So again, we're going to look at some more photos, and then we're going to get into content. But before we get into content, I just want to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page for the most part. The next slide that I'm about to pull up, and again, just a reminder, anything that I share with you, you will have access to it. If you want to write, it's up to you, but I know when you all are with Dr. Pam, she does not allow you all to write while she's talking. So again, we're going to look at the id, the ego, and the superego. And so what you have to remember is the conscience is at the top. The conscience is what's working with all of us right now. Our conscience lets us understand what's going on. We can recall things, we can memorize things. And then we have our preconscious. Our preconsciouses go all the way back. We may not remember a lot of things when we turn, like when you start getting dementia, a lot of people with dementia, preconscious work. And the preconscious look like you can often remember your first grade teacher name or your junior high school or your first best friend name. Some people can even remember like their address or their telephone number when they were like 5 and things of that nature. So your preconscious goes back. You'll be like, I remember we lived in a house and it was 123 Sesame Street, but I can't remember if we had upstairs. So some of the stuff is working, but not all of it. And then the unconscious, that's where you start seeing the superego and the id doing this thing because the unconscious doesn't work at all or it's foggy. And so it's like somebody with an unconscious, if you think about if you all ever watched a crime show where they have the people in the courtrooms TV shows and the person is in the interrogation room and they're like, you saying I killed that person? Oh no, I wasn't even at the scene. You like, how are they saying that? And then they start showing them pictures like, we saw you here, and they're like, that wasn't me. So the unconscious does things to make us feel safe. And just like it's all the way down at the bottom, that's how the unconscious is. These are our clients in real life and on the exam that's been traumatized, and everybody trauma is different, but for the sake of the exam, it's often like a young lady who was molested when she was 7 by her uncle. And so because she like, my uncle shouldn't be doing this to me, and I don't think I'm supposed to be touched, because we're taught that at an early age. Now she's buried that feeling, and when she gets older, now her preconscious is like, I remember something happened to me, but I don't remember exactly what happened to me. I think he touched me. He may took his private part and put it in my private area, but the preconscious just kind of shuts off. So anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns about what I just talked about? You will have this to look at further as well. And again, just I think you all got it. So we won't stick on the id, the ego, the super ego for too long, but
I was just
just
going
want
to
to
say,
remind you.
I remember when I worked in long-term care, we had a woman, she was like in her 80s, and she had dementia. And I was always the one practically chasing her down to make sure she didn't leave. But many times when I would approach her, she would be, her dementia was very bad. And she'd be like, but I've got to go home. I'm going to be late. Mom's doing this, or, I've got to get back there. It was just really
Mm-hmm.
interesting to hear what she was talking about from her childhood. She could easily name the town she lived in. And it
Mm-hmm.
was just really interesting to, catch up to her. And as I'm literally running towards her to get her to stop to keep her from leaving the facility, and standing in front of her, and she says, "Get out of my way." So it was like very much right here, right now. I understand this, but I also remember that.
Yep.
Recording in progress.
It was pretty cool.
So that is exactly how it works. It's going to be an echo. Just like that. And that's what I was using the example earlier about dementia, because that's what happens. The client can remember everything from way back then. And you're like, oh, okay. So that is how the brain works. It takes us backwards. And the preconscious, also on the exam, you will see the preconscious work a lot of times with people that was in a car accident or some type of accident that affected their brain. Also you see it in again, sexual assault victims. They can remember just a little bit, but not a whole lot. And thank you for sharing it. So remember, this is Freud's psychosocial sexual stages. This shows up on the exam. So I always tell students, you need to know what type of person you're working with in the vignette. Is it a kid? Is it a baby? And if it's a baby and it's in the oral phase, this is where they're putting their hands in their mouth. They're biting stuff that they shouldn't be biting. And then we have our anal phases from 2 to 4 years of age. And I also want to say, when you all are studying things for ages, whether it's Piaget, Margaret Mailer, Eric Erickson work, sometimes you'll be like, well, I looked at that and it says 0 to 2, and then you look at something else and it says 0 to 3. So it's going to always be off a number contingent on what you're studying, but I don't want you to get confused. And then from 2 to 4, you have the anal stage. Also, what you need to understand about the anal stages, or with any of these stages, is people get stuck in these stages. So you can be 35, but still stuck in the anal stage. And this is because this is where we learn how to be potty trained. Like it says here, retaining feces, knowing how to defecate. So if you was a person that was very hard to potty train, there's a great possibility that as an adult, you're anal, you're uptight. Because when you when you trying to use the bathroom, you kind of get tight. And so with that being said, I don't know if you all ever been around a person, you're like, oh, they so anal and uptight, and they're a grown person, they're stuck in the anal phase. And then you have the phallic stage, which is from 4 to 5. And this is where you should understand on the exam, if there's a kid that's 4 or 5 and they're in their pre-K class or their kindergarten class and they're playing with their private areas or they're playing with other kid private areas, you should be able to discern if that child has a mental disability or if that child is in the phallic stages. Um, if a kid has a mental deficit and they're playing with themselves, what you need to understand is low functioning children have a high sex drive, and so they will masturbate and things of that nature. Don't always think, oh, that child is being sexually assaulted. So that's why you have to assess so you can get to the root of the problem. Now, a child that's considered normal, I do quote 4 to 5, and they're playing with their genitals, you have to be able to assess on the exam if they're being messed with, somebody's playing with them, or if this is just a phase. Any questions, comments, or concerns about the 3 that I just mentioned? Okay. So with Freud's work, as we continue from age 6 to puberty, puberty is going to be around 13 to 14. That's that latency stage. And this is where they they love sports. They're trying to figure out who they are. They may feel like I'm a male that like a male, or I'm a female that like a female, but that's where those morals start kicking in. You're like, am I supposed to be a male liking a female, liking a male? My parents probably wouldn't approve of that. And so they're trying to identify themselves. At this point, they are avoiding sex, but probably around 14 or 15, that sexual feelings start coming up. This is also the way it shows up on the exam. Again, around this age, they're not liking sex. They're trying to figure out who they are. They get the little bubbly feeling. They're more into like trying to, do I like sports? Do I like to play chess? Whatever. But if it's a kid on the exam around this age that's always sexually stimulated, then you assess, and even in real life, to see if someone is messing with them. And then you have from puberty onward, this is the genital. And this is where now you're like 14, 15 on up. And so this is where sex do start coming in. The little boys start having an erectile thing. Little girls start feeling themselves. And then they do start like kissing people or wanting to touch. Because remember, touch can be considered as a sexual thing as well. Questions, comments, or concerns about any of those phases?
I have a question, Miss
Mhm,
Sherry,
mhm,
for latency.
mhm.
So are the sexual feelings, they're hidden, so they're not happening, they're not existing, they're not feeling it at that point, right? Okay.
That's correct. Hmm.
Okay.
Yep, they're just feeling like I want to hang out with my friend all the time. This is
Right.
the phase two on the exam where the parents like, my child doesn't want to eat at the kitchen table with us anymore. All they want to do is talk on the telephone to their friends. So this is in real life and on the exam where you hear the parents always griping about their child don't want to be around them anymore. And so the parent starts assuming that they're doing something, but from 6 up to 13, 14, they're not thinking about sex. They're just thinking about that pimple on their face, or, why
Mm-hmm.
am my little chest growing? They're really trying to figure out because their body is changing at that stage. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
more focused on the body changes, and the girls start wearing big shirts because they're like, wait a minute, what just happened? I went to sleep and I woke up and this. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Any more questions, comments, or concerns?
I think about the anal stage where I've known my fair share of young ones, and it seems to be that right in that age is not just the defecating and retaining, but also they're very obsessed with their bodily functions to the
Mm-hmm.
point where some of the little ones actually paint with their feces.
Mm-hmm. Yep. This is it is to be true. If you ever been around a kid and they're around two and they're sucking their bottle, they have a tendency to put their hands in their diaper. And you're like, where did this kid get this from? And on the exam, some make that like similar to that can show up because it wants to assess you to see if you understand that's just normal. They're still in that touchy feely phase. Um, if they're nursing, you would see a 2 or 4 year old that's just like constantly doing this to their mom. And that's because that's how their mom puts them when they're nursing. So again, you have to assess and you have to understand each person's work, because Freud work can look like Piaget work. Piaget work can look like Margaret Mailer's work, and so forth and so on. So the next thing you need to understand for the sake of the exam is the Oedipus. I know it starts with the O, but the O is silent. I have a 6-year-old grandson. He said, why do you all make these words up and then say they're silent? I didn't create these words, but it's the Oedipus complex versus the Electra complex. And as in the traditional word, blue is for boy, pink is for girl. But the Oedipus is what's going on in a boy life. And the Electra is what's going on in the girl life. And so what happens with the Oedipus is just like the Ed, it's all about a little boy who is really, really infatuated with his mom. And so when we use the term mama's boy, daddy's girl, this is what they're talking about, the Oedipus and the Electra. And so with the Oedipus complex, this again is Freudian's work. So this is a time, it's rare I say this, but this is something you can memorize. And what he talks about is the child's sexual desire for the parent. So again, and this is where the little boy, he's gonna take up for his mom. If his dad is yelling at the mom, and he's gonna say, "Don't yell at my mama," and then the dad gonna say, "Get somewhere and go sit down," but he's gonna be like, "No." If dad gets too close to mom, he's gonna come and try to figure out how to get in the middle of them. If mom got her arm around dad, he takes her arm away. So when you see little boys do that, that's what's going on. It's called a rivalry with their dad or with their caregiver, the same sex caregiver. And so also at this stage, this is called the catastrophication state, anxiety state, sorry, tongue twisted. And this is where when a little boy ends up seeing his mom or end up seeing a picture of a lady vagina and he goes, wait, her penis been cut off. And so this is how they're thinking typically under the age between 4 and 6, which is often the first time they recognize body parts. Although I told you they've been touching them, now they really recognize them. And so they get nervous and they actually think that the dad is the one who chopped mom's penis off. And so it takes a lot of explaining to them. And then when they see a male body part, they're like, wait a minute, he got it. So they think a woman is supposed to have a penis until you explain otherwise. And with the electric complex, again, Freudian work, and this is where the girl adores her father. She has a rivalry with her mom. Again, this daddy's girl. She does not want her mom in her dad's presence. Mom can yell at dad. She gonna give mama the side eye. And then she's gonna go to dad and have a conversation with him at 5. Like, did mama hurt your feelings? Because if she did, I can beat her up. And so this is also a stage, unlike little boys, they're not as attractive to mom. Like they don't have this lovey-dovey feeling. But look, girls really do start having this feeling, this attraction feeling towards their dad, about their dad, not towards their dad. And I always tell every group that I work with, if you ever get the opportunity to watch Eve's Bayou, that will truly show you an electric complex. Questions, comments, or concerns about these two? All right. Countertransference and transference. This is something we often, some of us get confused, but what you just remember is with countertransference, this is when the therapist has a problem with the client. And not always just having a problem, but the therapist may see the client resembling like their child or their ex-husband. And so the therapist now is like, oh, every time Sherry comes into my office, she looks like my sister that I hate. And now I got to be her therapist. And oh, she remind me of my sister. So the therapist has to figure out how to work through that. And what they need to do is do consultation. I have countertransference issues quite often, and I have to consult with my peers because I have a private practice. And I'm like, okay, they're like, so Sherry, why do you not like this person? I'm like, they did this, they did that. And so I just have to talk through it. And until the client recognizes, this not working, I have to keep working with that person. That's the same thing on the exam. When you have countertransference issues, you're going to consult with your supervisor if you work at an agency. If you work private practice, you're going to consult with peers. If when it's transference, then that's when the client is like, oh, the therapist reminds me of my mother. And right now, my mother and I, we are not on good terms. And so the client is like, this is not going to work. Now, in this case, the client can say, you know what, Miss Sherry, I have nothing against you, but you're just not a good fit for me. And I am going to go to another therapist, and it's okay. Questions, comments, or concerns about those two? It shows up on the exam. Now, I'm not going to go through these really because I want to get into content, but these are things that you need to understand. We talked about repression already. These are defense mechanisms. You have to know them because they show up on the exam. We have repression, a person goes backwards. The unconscious may kick in. We have denial. Often on the exam, it's going to show up in someone that's abusing alcohol, or it's going to show up in someone that's abusing any type of substance. It also shows up with the people that are court ordered. And then projection, this is when somebody put their feelings onto someone else. I may be not having, I just use the example here. You might hate someone, but your super ego tells you that such hatred is unacceptable. So what you start saying is, oh, Sarah, I know you don't like me. And Sarah's like, what are you talking about? I never said that. I don't feel that way. But it's actually you that do not like Sarah. And then you have displacement. And on the exam, displacement will show up where you are frustrated with a person or an item. So you had a bad day at work. This is our clients a lot of times. They come home and take it out on their husband and children. Or you come home and kick the dog, or you bust the window in the car, or you kick the trash can and knock all the trash over. Regression, not to be mistaken for repression, but regression is moving backwards. And so this is when a child may begin to suck their thumb again or wet the bed when they need to spend some time in the hospital. It's a scary situation going on, and so it sets them back. It's like an older person that ends up that falls at home and have to go to rehab care. They can regress as well. Sublimation. Sublimation is when I'm so angry. This is something good for clients that are going through anger management, because instead of going out there beating people up, you can just teach them how to go kickbox or boxing or do something that's going to be productive instead of doing something that's going to harm them. Questions, comments, or concerns about any of those defense mechanisms?
I saw a question once where it had used it like made the it didn't give enough information to know that it was asking or stating that it was a defense mechanism. And I know I've taken the test 2 other times, and I found it rather odd that in this other scenario, this other situation where this practice, like quiz test, whatever, that it gave me something that was that obscure, and I didn't know, like when I went to answer the question, that it was actually looking for regression. And it was rather strange. I've never seen anything like that before. And it really made me question my ability to understand the defense mechanisms, where like when we talk about them like this, I understand, but I worry when I go into the test that there's going to be one where it's obscure and not being clear as far as this is what I'm looking for type of question. Does that make sense?
It does. And with defense mechanisms, a lot of times, I think the more we learn and understand content, it really becomes like that. I didn't read the question, but based off of what you're saying, um, we have so many people creating questions now, practice questions, especially if you're talking about a practice question, because the real exam should have gave you a little bit more information. But if it's a practice question or either or, it's about knowing the content that will make you be able to say, okay, now let me look at my 4 choices and try to eliminate 2 and keep 2 and look at the 2 to see which one really fits into whatever that missing information is. I hope that made sense what I just said.
It does. I think back to this question, and I remember it was like a husband and a wife who has the ability to drive but chooses not to, and so her husband has to drive her everywhere. And then it asked for which defense mechanism. I'm like, what? Wait. And it could, like I said, it confused me just enough. And then when I answered the question, I thought it was something else, and then I saw regression. I'm going, this doesn't make any sense, because
Yeah, so let me tell you why it's regression. If something has happened in her life, if it gave you enough information, um, sometimes we miss a word in the question too, but she's gone backwards. It sounds like she was driving at some point and may not have said that in that vignette, but now her husband is doing it. So something, she could have been in a car accident and now she's afraid to drive. And so she's gone backwards, and now she just need her husband to do it until she builds that back up.
it was saying like it was making him late for work, or missing things because he was having to drive her to appointments. And
Mhm.
that's why I was just like, when I was reading the answer, it made sense, but I think there was just something in the question itself that just did not give me enough, and
Yeah.
just that little bit of information to.
Yeah.
And
Once
I
we
worry
get
going
content,
into.
it makes sense.
I'm sorry.
I said, once you understand content, you'll be able to fill in those spots and it'll start making sense.
Okay.
Okay.
I just get
Anybody else
nervous.
had problems with the defense mechanisms? Thanks for sharing it. So we're not going to go through that. This is really important to know on the exam as well. It's called incongruent and congruent. And with it, incongruent and congruency means that this is actually something that we put on our assessment. It's the person body language, their face, all of those things. Is it matching what they're saying? And so if it's incongruent, you get to call your client out on this and you go, okay, you're sounding all excited, but you're constantly bawling all up and you got tears running down. So you like, what emotion you have right now? And so when you have to seek clarification. And they can be like, hey, I actually had a client this morning that was like that. And I was like, he looks dry, but he was speaking, he sounds so happy. And I said, hey, such and such, something's going on. I can't figure out what it is. And he was like, man, I really had a bad week and I was just trying to put on a show for you. And so when you talk to your clients, they really will. I was like, put on a show for me. He was like, yeah, because I know in our last session we talked about I was gonna do, I should have done ABC and I haven't done any of it. I just haven't had time. I've been working. So once I started assessing him, his body language and his voice started matching. So that's called a professional confrontation, and you have to know when you can confront your clients because some confrontations can put them back and they don't want to open up the remainder of the session. Questions, comments, or concerns about incongruent versus congruency or congruent? Okay. Let's talk about motivational interviewing. I know y'all like, she said we was going to get to content. So with motivational interviewing is a good tool. It's something we have to understand because again, it's about assessing. And for the most part, you're going to ask open-ended questions. Remember, open-ended questions is something that's going to get you a full answer, not just a yes or no. If I say, are you feeling okay today? Yes. That's a close-ended question. So, Miss Such and Such, tell me about your week. Now that's an open-ended question. You're gonna be like, it was a long week. It was rough. I wish it was better. So just remember that's how you want to do motivational interviewing. Also, you ask them things like on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst, how are you feeling today? And that'll open things up as well. You also need to know when it comes to treatment planning, all of this stuff, y'all probably like, what is she talking about? It is related to treatment planning, but what you do want to understand that the stages of change. And so sometimes we have a problem recalling these, and this is something you can recall, but the stages are contemplation, pre-contemplation. That's when you're like, everybody's saying, Sherry, you've gained a lot of weight and it doesn't look good on you. And you're like, okay, they think I gained weight. I don't think it. And then contemplation is I get on the scale every Friday and I'm like, wow, the scale numbers keep going up. And so now I'm like, okay, I guess I am gaining weight like everyone says that I am. And then preparation is like, okay, I got to start figuring out how am I going to pay for a fitness trainer or a gym membership, and how do I prepare meals on every Sunday for meal prepping? So your preparation is your intent. What are my intentions on taking actions in order to help me lose weight? Now we go to action where I'm really okay. I'm in the gym now. I'm meal prepping. And I'm doing real good. I've been doing good at it for about 6 months. And then I go to maintenance. I no longer have to go see my fitness coach, but I still go to the gym 3 times a week. So I'm in the maintenance stage. I'm sustaining this change because I replaced all those old behaviors. So remember, when you're doing stages of change, you got to sometimes replace people, places, and things, or you have to move away from old people, places, and things. Now, the funky wonky thing about the stages of changes, yeah, I did all that hard work. I kept the weight off for a year, but I relapsed. I went to my cousin's wedding and she had all that good unhealthy food, and I just pigged out. And ever since then, I just haven't been eating right. So you start all over again. Questions, comments, or concerns about the stages of change? Okay. So there is a lot more information here, but we're going to stop. I'm just going to show you the other things that will later come up. And so this is information. Please, when you get a chance to look over this, look over it. You may not understand it. Then again, you might. But at this point, I'm going to stop and pull up content. Questions, comments, or concerns about anything that we just went over? Okay.
Not yet.
You said not yet? All righty. We're about to get into some content. So what's going to happen is I want you all to know that I teach from Don Apgar book. And the reason is because I wish Jessica would have shared this with you all. Don Apgar allows you to understand content. And a lot of times what we do on this exam before I pull the screen up is we try to memorize everything, and that's not healthy. In order to secure, or in order to do well on this exam, whether you take it 20 times, each time you want to see progress. But you have to understand the material that's out there. And if you don't understand it, when you're doing test questions, you're like, I did the same practice test 3 times and the score keeps changing. That's an indicator because you're taking the test by memory and not by content. So do keep that in mind. So when we talk about the intervention process, this is in chapter 8 of Don Apgar book. I always tell people when you're reading any book for social work prep, start at the top and go down. What you'll see is all information is stacking. When you're reading, read the headings out loud to yourself. Try to read for 1 hour because after 1 hour you start kind of like tapping out. So what you have to understand when it comes to the intervention process, are you all able to see my screen?
Most of it.
Y'all said no? Uh-oh. Let me take it down.
I can see it.
Okay, thank you. Let me go back then. Y'all still can see it? Everyone can see the screen?
Mhm.
Okay. So what you have to understand or should understand about the intervention process is, in essence, you have the principles and techniques of interviewing. And when you're doing an interviewing, I'm not going to read everything, but you're clarifying. And clarifying is so important. If your client says, I'm having a bad day and I just wish I wasn't living anymore, and you say, so did you say you want to die today? You're going to kill yourself? They're going to come back and say, Miss Sherry, I did not say I wanted to kill myself. I just said I'm having a bad day. And so that's what clarifying is. When you're confronting, as I mentioned earlier, you have to know when to confront and how to confront. On the exam, a lot of times you are able to confront individuals that are having alcohol issues. But again, you have to know, you have to have the perfect timing for this. And so when it comes to social workers, when we interview, it's always for a purpose. What you have to understand is you need to pay attention to verbal and nonverbal communication. If your client is like this the whole session, that's a nonverbal. And you have to assess, why are you sitting there with your arms folded up the whole 45 minutes? And so they're going to say, my chest is hurting. And now if they tell you that, you got to assess to see if it's a medical issue, because if it's a medical concern, you need to advise them to go to the hospital or see their primary care physician. So remember, the actions of a social worker is to gather information. That's what assessing looks like, asking questions. So any questions, comments, or concerns about what I just said? Also, what we need to understand is, for the sake of the exam, when we are assessing our clients, we have to focus on our client's uniqueness. That means that whatever you did with client A, although client A is coming to you for divorce issues, client B looks like client A and coming to you for divorce issues, you are not to do the same thing with client B that you did with client A. It doesn't work. You may be able to say, do just a little bit, but do not try to do a cookie cutter process. When we are communicating, again, interviewing our clients, asking questions, the exam wants to make sure you understand that you are not to ask questions that make a client feel uncomfortable. And on the exam, it will let you know, like we get questions that are related to medical issues. Sometimes it'll say the lady is having a vaginal problem and it's causing disruption between her and her spouse in intimacy. And so the client will give you the information as they want to, but you may not want to ask like, so when did this start? If she did not tell you that, that's being intrusive. And if she says, hey, Miss Sherry, I don't want to give that information right now, you apologize, you back off, and you wait till she's ready to give you that information. The same thing with kids. Uh, for the sake of the exam, if there's a kid we identify in the vignette that they're being molested or something, we only can ask a little questions, but then we're going to pass them off. On the exam, we never act in the role of Department of Children and Family Services. Did everybody understand it? Again, I cannot see you all, so. The other thing you need to know for the sake of the exam is the importance of words. I always say you have to learn how to talk like a social worker. Now, I'm country and I don't say everything the correct way, but there are things that we just have to know as social workers. And you will see the word implicit a lot on test questions, on practice material, and even in real life. And what you just need to understand that implicit means implied and explicit means evident. And so you want to know, was something implied and was it evident? Was it true? Questions, comments, or concerns? Let's see. Gloria, read explicit.
Explicit, conscious knowledge, flexible expression, hippocampus dependent, recollection expressed, cognitive only, effortful, retrieval also develops until adulthood, vulnerable to injury.
Okay. And Amy, give me implicit.
Implicit, unconscious, skills, rigid expression, non-hippocampus, performance express, non-cognitive, also automatic retrieval only, developed by age 3, resistant to injury.
Mm-hmm. And y'all remember the hippocampus is part of our brain. And so it's the part of the brain that's working and that can recall information. So when you're studying, you have to say, is my hippocampus working? And we can affect our hippocampus when we start using drugs and things of that nature. So remember, everything on the explicit side is your conscience. It's working. That's why we talked about conscience earlier. And it develops as you get older unless you have some type of trauma or head injury. And then if that happens, it goes to the implicit side. But the implicit side as a whole is the unconscious. It's really not working, it's not performing, or it's doing the bare minimum. Questions, comments, or concerns about those two? So this is another thing the exam wants you to understand is a social worker should listen, be non-judgmental throughout an assessment. While you're meeting with your client, it is okay sometimes just not to say anything and let them talk. Now, at the end, you do want to summarize and recap. Occasionally, you want to make sure you say something because you don't want them to think that something is wrong with you. So there should be some engagement, but sometimes your client has a lot to say. Just let them do it. And so the techniques that we should be familiar with when we're doing the assessment process, one of them is the universalization. And this is in essence like, for instance, I read the example. A young person has finally come out. And so what this look like on the exam is your client talking, you have a 15-year-old male who is gay, and he's like, you know what, my parents are going to be upset, Miss Sherry. I'm scared to tell them this is not how we value life, but I feel like I know who I am now. I'm about to be 16 next year, and or in a few months, and I'm just ready to come out and tell the world, but I feel like I'm the only one like this. So when we do universalization, we let a person know, we don't silver line it, but we let them know that you're not the only gay boy. So you letting them know, but you're also letting them know that you understand their feelings. You understand what's going on, but you want to kind of normalize it a little bit. Questions, comments, or concerns? Another technique that we use in counseling is called clarification. And this is when we reformulate the problem that a client gives to us. And this is how you make sure you understand. I can tell you sometimes in sessions, and you probably have done it in real life, you just kind of tuned out for 1 second. Your Apple Watch went off and you looked at it, and so now you're thrown off. But what you do is reformulate the problem that the client had stated, and then again, they're going to come back and tell you if you're right or wrong. You're just like, I want to clarify what you said. It's like making sure you heard what they said. And so with clarification, again, it's you miss something and it just don't make sense, because sometimes our clients go around and maybe every bush and back. And so when it's unclear, you're just going to encourage them like, hey, will you take a minute and tell me what's really going on? Because what you're saying to me, it doesn't make sense. And so, did somebody say something?
Yeah, this is Amy. I just wanted to ask, can you zoom out just a little bit?
Okay.
It zoomed in just a little bit, and I'm having a hard time seeing.
Is it a little bit better? Better, worse?
Worse.
Okay. Better, worse? I feel like I'm at the eye doctor now.
It has. No, it hasn't really changed yet.
I'm sorry. Did it change now?
No, it might just be me.
Okay. I'm sorry, Amy. I tried.
I know. I'm not worried about
It might be your device. Sometimes the devices we viewing from, they're all different. But you'll have this material. I know that's not working for you right now, but you will have access to it.
it. Okay.
So when it comes to confrontation, this is where we call attention to something. And so in confrontation, it's not meant to be negative. And sometimes you have to explain that to your client, like, I'm not calling you out on this to be negative, but I really want you to understand that you're saying that you're drinking 5 days a week, but you're also saying that you cut down on drinking. That's not real. So, or you saying that you're going to work late every day, but you don't understand why you got rolled up this week. So you have to call them out, confront them on the matter. And your clients, if you set the tone before you have the conversation, they'll appreciate it a whole lot better. Interpretation really doesn't show up on the exam, nor does relabeling or reframing, but at your leisure, you can look at that. Summarization, however, will show up. And summarization is just when we're bringing everything together. Uh, we talked about the objectives and the interventions, and we want to summarize how this is looking so far. We have 6 more sessions left, but we want to assess to see if things are going well, if the techniques that were put into place are really working. And so when in that summarization, again, you're looking for pulling together what seems to be disorganized and trying to make sure we kind of get it on task. Questions, comments, or concerns?
Miss Sherry, these are all communication techniques, right?
That is correct. And this is what we're using when we're doing treatment planning, because we have to have effective communication to get our clients to talk to us and
Mm-hmm.
talk back to us so that we can help them with the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Now, when it comes to summarization, Ms. Smith, tell me what you see right here where it says summarization statements, some of the things a social worker can
Mhm.
say.
It says, "Have I got this correct? You have said that, and during the past hour, you and I have discussed."
Thank you. So let me tell you why it's so important to use I statements. We should encourage our clients to use I statements. It doesn't sound like we're pointing fingers or doing a blaming game. What it sounds like is, I'm just trying to make sure. I'm not saying it was you, but I am trying to make sure I got it correct, because I don't want to go through this entire session and I'm wrong. I have a client, and the other day I said, your girlfriend is graduating from college, right? And he was like, "No, Miss Sherry, that would make her like 4 years older than me." And I'm like, "Oh, I should have clarified that." But at that moment, I was getting, and he was like, "Oh, my girlfriend is going to be tickled from this because people think she's older than me." And I actually, when I'm talking to people and they start talking about their partners, I start sketching out how I think their partner looked. But again, just asking them the questions, I was like, "I'm sorry, I thought she was graduating from college." And it just sounds so much better. So, this is something I am going to read. Social workers must be proficient in languages spoken by clients or use qualified interpreters. This shows up on the exam, you all. If you work for an agency and they do not have an interpreter on site and you speak English and your client speaks Spanish, you just say you're working at an HIV clinic and you are going to give your clients their results, which is they're HIV positive, and they have their daughter with them who speaks English. You are not going to ask that daughter to give out the information. You do, however, have to read every test question because it's a little different. But what you should know is, if there's anyone that works at your company, it could be the janitor, it could be the person that works in the cafeteria, but if they speak Spanish, you can use them as your interpreter if that company does not have a paid interpreter agency. Also, the other thing you need to understand is when you are interpreting something, when you're having someone to interpret for you, you do not look at the person speaking for you, you look at the client. Even though you're not saying anything, you still look at them, and the person that's speaking on your behalf, they can look at the client and keep it that way. Questions, comments, or concerns?
I know when I worked, again, I'm going back to when I worked in long-term care. I'm sorry, like I said, my computer and I are not getting along right now. Um, they, we actually had the state come in and do their normal audit, which they do annually. And we wound up getting in trouble because we had people not using interpreters for the individuals that either one was, she spoke Hindi, another one spoke Italian, and we had a person on staff that actually spoke Italian, but
Mhm.
that person had never been utilized. And the state, actually, the whole facility as a whole got in trouble because no staff member at all utilized the services. And we got in trouble for also because the person who spoke Hindi did not have an appropriate interpreter. And the number of staff that would actually, the family member would be there and they'd offer, and the staff would be like, okay, sure. But then they would also be offended because we didn't use them as an interpreter.
Right.
And I actually had to step up and say, "I'm sorry, I understand you're willing to do this, but we have to use an unbiased interpreter because you could be giving us your version of things, and we may not know how this person really thinks and feels. So we have to, we have to get somebody, a third party that doesn't know them, and they would still
Yeah.
be a little upset, but they understood better once I explained it to them like that."
Yeah. Now, if you have no access and you have to use somebody in your agency, make sure whatever you do, thank you for sharing it, you document. Such as the interpreter was unavailable, but we know the cafeteria worker can speak Hindu, and this is who did it. Also, when you're doing it, never ask for opinions. Don't be like, so do you think I should say this to her? Don't do that. It's just whatever you wanted to say to that person, you're going to look at the client, you're going to say it, the interpreter is going to look at the client, and you're going to, the interpreter is going to transcribe it for you. Again, thank you for sharing it. So that lets you know your company can be cited, real life. So when we talk about the phases of intervention and treatment, remember we talked earlier, verbal expressions and nonverbal communication. Pamela, what is that? When somebody looks one way, but they're saying something else?
I don't know.
Who wants to help Pamela?
Incongruent.
That's
Incongruent,
incongruency. Yeah.
incongruent, yes.
I told y'all I quiz y'all along the way. Okay. Don't be mad at me, y'all. This is for the sake of learning. Another thing we need to understand is that, again, when we're examining those cues, we got to make sure that we use appropriate strategies when we're addressing our clients. And this helps us move on with the problem solving. It's called the social worker problem solving process, which is assessing, planning, intervention, evaluation, and termination. So that is the process that we use on the exam, and we most definitely use in real life. And so when we're assessing the client, that's something you have to. You got to ask them questions. In assessing, sometimes you have to understand the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Do anybody know what the Maslow hierarchy of needs are? Or what's the concept behind it? No
Making sure they
volunteer?
reach self-actualization, I
There
think.
you go. Yes. And so here's the thing. Thank you for sharing it. If your client comes to you and their house just got burned down and they lost everything in it, they might not really want to talk. So you have to make sure you understand that a person does not want to talk about anything but what they need at that moment, especially if they don't have a place to sleep, they don't have food to eat, and money. Because at that point, they are having a deficit. That deficit is called the D needs when we talk about Maslow hierarchy of needs, and that's deficient. That means that if I don't have money, I can't pay my rent, I can't put food on my table, I don't have clothes. And so there's no security there. The self-esteem is low. So when they come to you, they want you to help them find a job. They want you to help them gain money to pay their rent for the next month. And then the other part of Maslow is the growth needs, and that says self-actualization. That means we're doing good, and so you're probably going to have a better session with them. Any questions, comments, or concerns about that? Okay. Let's see. The other thing we need to know with content, we have the micro, the mezzo, and sometimes you'll see meso, like MESO. Sometimes you'll see MEZZO, and then we have macro. Let's see, Amy, what is micro? Uh-oh, I don't think Amy thing is working. Miss Smith, what is micro?
It's the individual in that
Mhm.
environment.
Pamela, what's mezzo?
Meso will be community or
It can
no?
be community. So let
Community, but
me
it's smaller.
it's smaller.
It's
Uh-huh.
smaller than macro. Yes.
Groups.
Yep. And so in real life and on the exam, groups should not exceed 10 people. Now in real life, we might have 40 people in a group. But and then when we take the test, we're like, well, we got 40 people in my group, so why they think it's supposed to be 10? Because it's not supposed to be 40. And so it's groups small groups. It can also be like a family unit, like mom, dad, two kids. It could be a couple. It's just not one person. Meso is one person. I'm sorry, micro is one person. Meso is two up to maybe 20 people. And then we have macro, which is on the bigger scale. That's when we're dealing with the community a lot of times, or a group over 10 to 20 people. So questions, comments, or concerns about that? Meso, micro, and macro shows up on the exam. So you do need to be familiar with it. And that's something we learned early on in our studies when we were in school. So again, I have talked about what I refer to as the APATI, which is the social worker helping plan engagement. I've been saying it all night. You introduce yourself. Assessment. I told you I repeat things 5 different ways. Assessment is when the person telling you their problem, but you're going to identify their strengths. You don't want them just talking about all the problems that they're coming in. You're going to be like, so tell me some things, some good things about yourself. What are you good at? Some qualities that everybody like. Those are those open-ended questions. And then you plan with the client, not for the client. After you all plan, y'all put that intervention in place. After the intervention has been put into place, you're going to evaluate it to see if it's working, and then you terminate the client. So, anyone have questions about the social worker helping process? Because it's actually showing up the entire exam. Remember, we talked about the stages earlier. You have pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and relapse. So I am going to take the screen down. And in this order, this is how you're going to answer. It's going to be Pamela, Gloria, Miss Smith, Amy. Did I miss anyone? Okay. So, Pamela, take it. What's pre-contemplation?
Pre-contemplation is when the client is not aware about the problem. Or can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You said when they know about the problem?
They are not aware.
Yep.
Unaware of the problem, or they don't want to change.
They don't want to change. They're not ready.
Mm-hmm.
Gloria, contemplation.
That's when you start thinking, okay, maybe I do have a problem. Something's been going on consistently, and it's like, okay, I might have a problem.
Got some mixed feelings. The
Mm-hmm.
social work term starts with the A. Do you know what it is, Gloria?
The social work term assessment?
When you have mixed feelings.
Oh, it starts with an A.
A-M-B.
Ambivalent.
There you go. All right. See, teamwork
Thank
makes
you. I
the
need
dream work.
more letters.
We're on a wheel of fortune now. Okay, Miss Smith, tell me about preparation.
Okay, preparation is when they start preparing for that change. So start getting things in place so they can make some improvements.
All right. Okay, y'all on the roll. Miss Amy, tell me about action.
They're actually taking steps to make the change.
Yeah, feel good about it. And so I think that's it. So after that, you all did a great job. You have maintenance and relapse. And so again, maintenance, as I said earlier, they're keeping that behavior going even after they're done with their sessions. And relapses, they fail. And it's okay to start over. Again, you can see MESO or MEZZO, and then you have micro and macro, and you all did phenomenal on that. So we're not going to go over that anymore. What you need to understand with macro is that this is going to be community. And when you all start looking at the community part of the social work exam, please don't panic. For some reason, 90% of us, we just like lose it when we start talking about community. Community is the same thing as working on the meso or the micro level. You're just working with a larger group. And so when you're doing a macro, you're going to meet with the leader of the community. So, like, every community has a leader. You got to find out who that person is. They're probably the one who invited you to the community because it's something going on. Like here in Memphis, Tennessee, we're having some legal issues. The president and some other higher ups, they want to rezone one of our areas and turn it from a democracy to republic. And so that's where like a social worker can step in. They're going to connect with the political person that got power in their community, and they're going to work on creating a task and trying to identify and teach the individuals what they can do in order for the policies to go back to what they used to be. So that's what a macro level looks like. It's just you're working with a whole lot more people, and it's the issue may look a little bigger, but it's the same as anyone who's been raped or somebody that's coming for trauma or somebody who has a brain injury or dementia or who's facing divorce or in a domestic violence relationship. So any questions about macro? There are a lot of macro social workers. And if you want to make a lot of money as a social worker, become a policy changer. It's a lot of money out there. So when it comes to the problem solving models, this is when we're using like brief solution focused methods or just techniques that's going to help that we're going to put into place to help our client solve the problem that they came to us for. It could be CBT that you're implementing, trauma, whatever it is, the goal is to solve some portion of the problem. You may not be able to do all of it, but when you're doing this, you're enhancing the client's mental, emotional components, and you're giving them the capacity to build coping skills. Because remember, you only meet with the client maybe once a week, 1 hour. Sometimes I have some 30-minute sessions. And sometimes I'm like, Lord, we need 16 hours, but I only have 30 minutes with that person. And I have to come in and I got to do what I have to do, but I still have to give them the opportunity to talk, be engaged, listen. And we might not meet number every 2 weeks. So just imagine meeting every 2 weeks with a 30-minute session. Questions, comments, or concerns about what I just spoke about? Okay. So again, we create this material, and this is done APGAR, the social work engagement process. I just want to tell you, if you ever look at the book, it won't be pictures. I added the pictures for the visual learners, which that's another thing. You need to learn how your learning style, if you're kinesthetic, if you're a visual learner, or if you're an audio learner, or if you're all three. But again, the social worker helping process, when you're assessing, after you assess, you plan. After planning, you do an intervention. After the intervention, evaluation, then termination. So, Gloria, what's the social worker helping process?
She stepped away.
Okay. Miss Smith, what's the social worker helping process?
It's assessment, it's planning, intervention, um, evaluation, and termination.
Okay. Miss Pamela, what's the social worker helping process?
Assessment, planning, intervention, evaluation, termination.
Okay. Miss Amy, what's the social worker helping process?
Engage, no, assessment.
Engagement can be first.
Okay. Engagement, assessment, excuse me, assessment, planning, hold on, I'm having a brain cramp.
Take your time. It starts with the I.
Intervention,
Okay.
uh,
Starts with the E.
yep, no, I remember that, I don't want to say engagement, evaluation,
Correct.
termination.
All right, you got it. Good job. This is something that if I had to give you a list of 5 things that you should know, that is one of them. It helps you with answering your questions. Now we're talking about the tools we use to help our clients get through sessions. So we have some short-term interventions. This includes crisis intervention model. What I need you all to understand in the treatment planning process, when we're doing crisis, you first got to understand that we got to always get the client back to an equilibrium state. We only have about 6 weeks, 6 sessions, give or take, to get the client there. After maybe give or take 6 weeks, 6 sessions, if the client has not gotten back to their equilibrium or their normal state, it is no longer a crisis. So if you are a crisis social worker on the exam and the person is still in crisis state after 6 weeks, you refer them out to a crisis behavior specialist, which could be inpatient, because now it's something bigger. The thing we need to understand for the sake of the exam, again, is when we're meeting with a client that's in a crisis state, we have to focus on their feelings. We have to pay attention to nonverbal cues, and we have to understand they may not talk. We can ask all the open-ended questions, and they might just give us close-ended responses. So, but we still do everything like anything else. You do an assessment, you build a rapport with them, you identify the crisis, and on the exam or practice test, it may say the last straw. What was the last straw that brought you here? It was their breaking point. You're going to do a lot of active listening, because they may not repeat stuff multiple times, because they may not even have the conscious state of mind to repeat. And then after you discharge them, you're going to follow up. Now, if you refer them out, you may not have to follow up. Questions, comments, or concerns about the crisis model? Okay. So what you have to understand about the cognitive behavior model, which is CBT, is that CBT is used to try to help people not think negative all the time. You want to help them build on their strengths and see the good things about life, or the good qualities. And so when your client comes to you, you should know, for the sake of the exam, that their thoughts is going to affect their behavior. If I'm thinking negative, if I think I'm going to lose my job, I'm probably going to keep doing stuff that's going to help me do whatever it takes to lose my job, like keep showing up late, or smoking, taking a smoke break too long, or drinking right before I go to work, alcohol. And so also, after we get the behavior, the response, then our emotion starts getting all splotchy. Like we're like, oh my God, I can't believe I drank a beer, took 3 beers before I went to work. Now I'm sad. And so that situation keeps happening over and over until you can assist the person with using the CBT model. Questions, comments, or concerns? All right. So the other thing you should remember when it comes to the treatment planning is we use the psychoanalyst, we can use the psychoanalyst, which is long term. And this is Freud's early work. This is so important to remember because it does show up on the exam. So the psychoanalysis is long term. The short term is psychodynamic. It's those approaches that focuses on beliefs that childhood experiences are roots of adult dysfunction. So the psychodynamic is that person that is now in your office, they're 50 years old, but they was molested by their uncle when they were 6. And like I told you earlier, the preconscious work just a little bit. The unconscious is protecting them, because no 6-year-old wants to have to keep reliving that all the way to 50. And so this is the psychodynamic approach, where a lot of times EMDR is used, and it's to wake up the unconscious so that the person can safely have an engagement with those old thoughts, so that they can actually start doing better, because they probably like, okay, I can't keep a husband because I always want to just have sex with someone, but I don't know why, because I really don't like sex. But it's that psychodynamic, like he says, the childhood experiences is the cause of adult dysfunction. So if you see a dysfunctional adult, it's safe to say they had a bad childhood experience. Questions, comments, or concerns about psychoanalysis and psychodynamic?
Just as I was reading those, and I'm always looking for some easy way to help me remember something. And I'm looking at the word psychodynamic, and I'm seeing and thinking like the dynamic, and all that makes me think of is the word dynamite. Dynamite short. It's
Yep.
like one
So
and
can we
done.
make a pact? Do you mind me asking how long you've been studying for the exam?
Let's see. This is the third time I will be taking the exam.
Okay.
So I have been studying like pretty much every day since I scheduled my first exam.
Okay.
Like when I failed the first exam,
When
I
you
picked right up.
fail, when you so we don't use the word fail. I'm sorry.
We don't use what?
The word fail.
Oh,
So you're just gonna say when I didn't pass.
when I didn't pass the first exam,
There you go.
I started studying the very next day. I gave myself
Okay.
the rest of that day to kind of process what happened,
Mhm.
and I started studying again. And then I have days where, not that I'm studying, but like I might, yes, it's studying, but like I might watch one of Dr. Pam's videos. So yes, I'm studying, but
You're
I'm
just
just kind
kind
of
of
like,
taking it in.
yeah, just take it in. I've had nights where I have audiobooks and I'm listening to the audiobooks while I'm sleeping, or I'm listening to the audiobooks while I'm driving. One of the audiobooks has questions, so I'm listening to the questions and answering the questions while I'm driving.
Okay. Perfect. What I want to share with you briefly is after for the next 2 or 3 months, you can do those little whatever you need to do to help you memorize. But after that, I need you to learn content. You got to learn content because you're gonna memorize all of this stuff, and then all your questions are gonna start looking alike, and you're gonna start applying that memorization. This is the one thing I had to work with Jessica on. Jessica would be like, "I memorized," and I was like, "No, you didn't." So I mean, I wish she could tell the story. If you all have an opportunity to look at her interview, we actually talked about that, but when you use the social worker, to each of you using that social worker helping process, that is what's going to get you through reading your vignette, knowing how to apply, got to understand. You're going to always assess, but also it's going to come natural. So 2, 3 more months, you can do whatever you need to do so that you can teach yourself. But after that, just start learning the content, please.
Well, this is the third time I'll be taking it, and it's actually my test is scheduled for the 27th.
Okay.
So
You can do it.
there's the stuff does like as like if I'm reviewing it again, I remember it very quickly. But I've met with some of the clients at work, and I often tell them, and not to be funny, but yes, it's funny as well. I refer to myself kind of like a human etch sketch. If I am not right there in that moment and I'm not talking about it, I forget it. And I've told them, you want me to be like that because if I walk out this door, I don't want to remember this stuff and be out in the community and talking about you. I want to have that opportunity to protect you. And so like when I'm studying, and I'll remember it, but it's when I'm not studying or when I'm not doing certain things. Like when you were asking me about the social work model, there was in my mind, there's a picture in my mind of what word comes next, what it begins with, but I had to like really think of, okay, here's the letter, next word, and I had to like connect the dots. So it just took me longer to get to that spot.
Okay. You get in there. Just keep practicing. All right. Thank you for sharing that too.
Mhm.
So when it comes to the role of a social worker, when we're creating that atmosphere, kind of like what you was just saying, one of the words we should put in our vocabulary is conducive. And we want to do this conducive to change and to increase the client's intrinsic, their inner motivation. So once they feel motivated on the inside, it'll show on the outside. So this is how we seek change, and how we see, not only seek change from our clients, but how we see change from our clients. And so when we're using that motivational state of readiness, engaging them, it fluctuates. So you got to do that clarifying, clearly identifying the problem or the risk area. That's kind of like that clarification we talked about. Explaining why change is important, letting them know that, hey, you can't be like a dog. If you keep chasing your tail, you're going to go in circles. So now we need to do something different so we can see something different. You're going to help them not only teach them how to advocate, you're going to demonstrate, you're going to show them how you advocate for them so that they can start doing it when you're not around. You identify those barriers and you help them work to remove those barriers. So that if they're always doing stinking thinking, if you all never heard of that term, that's used with people that are alcohol and substance abuse users. They just think stinky, like I'm gonna be an alcoholic all my life. We got to remove that thought. Finding the best course of action, setting the goals, taking the steps, and then preventing relapse. Now, because we're out of the picture when relapse often happens, we just gotta, encourage them that, hey, you may not hear from me after we end, but continue to use the coping skills that you learn. As we get ready to come to a close, something that we really, really, we do it all the time, but sometimes we do stuff and don't know what we're doing. And this is empathy versus sympathy. And so we should be empathetic with our clients versus being sympathetic with them. And just remember, empathy is a factor that increases motivation. This is why we should be empathetic. It lowers resistance. So it allows your client to feel connected with you and not so restrained. And it fosters greater long term behavior change. And believe it or not, you're probably using empathy, but sometimes check yourself and recognize what you're saying, because empathy is just, I feel your pain. And so they're gonna, it motivates them to want to talk and share more with you. So keep that in mind. Remember that empathy questions are on the exam. Any questions, comments, or concerns about empathy versus sympathy? Okay. We are getting ready to close out. Let's see. So I will stop sharing. There's some more information here. Remember, you will have the ability to look over this again. And as we come to an end, I'm not Dr. Pam, obviously. And so we both have a different teaching style. I'm like, if you heard Jessica earlier, I'm more content driven. I think Dr. Pam does something different. But we're just going to go across the screen. Miss Smith, what did you get out of tonight's session?
That is very important to learn content. I feel like that's been my issue. Even with the LMSW, I found myself trying to memorize things and not really knowing. So it took me 4 times to pass my LMSW. And then I just recently took my LCSW, which I did not pass. But I'm going to have a different outlook and continue to use you guys. I feel like I was successful before when I use you guys for my LMSW. So I'm just going to continue to just focus on the content and making sure that I really understand what I'm doing.
You've been in group with me before, haven't you?
I think maybe one time. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Miss Pamela, what did you get out of tonight's session?
Same thing that Siri is saying. Learning content is very important. Having time to practice every single day. I work full time. On top of that, I do sessions, private sessions. So it's kind of hard for me when I have to do 2 jobs plus kids and sports and things like that. But I need to find my time. Just studying. It was very important that the other lady, Jessica, was there in the beginning. she was talking about like, okay, she was binging, like watching shows, like you just need to start practicing every single day, and then after that you will have, you know, what you want, passing your test. So it was very important. I like everything that you talk, that you explain.
This is my opinion on binging. If you're binging and you notice that you have to notice there's no change, don't binge. Just take a break. Like if you're doing this 7 days a week, you're like, okay, I'm gonna listen to this every morning on my drive from to work. And then you recognize that when you get to work or when you study the next time, I said when you study the next time, you still don't remember. That's because you probably really wasn't paying attention. You thought like, oh, I'm listening to this. It's different from like listening to the radio and singing along with a song. When it comes to this testing material, you hear it so much sometimes that you don't hear it. And then sometimes you can hear it so much that you hear something that you didn't hear the first time. So, but that's something you have to recognize. I can't do it for you. I'm just kind of giving you a tidbit. Pay attention because again, that's like that CBT. You first gotta think positive before you start studying. Otherwise, if you're like, I'm just studying, you don't just be studying. So you gotta remember that too as well. Because sometimes we go into studying like, man, I really don't want to do it. I know I got this exam coming up. That's going to mess your whole outlook when you're studying the material. Okay. Miss Gloria, what did you get out of tonight's session?
Uh, it was just helpful to review things that I feel like I know pretty well. It was nice to have to, even though it's intimidating to be called on.
You
I
did an
just
amazing job.
I know. I just, hard to kind of, I know my stuff. It's just hard for me to like put it into words sometimes. So I'm trying to find those words to make sense. So it was nice to just go over things that I'm like, okay, I feel 100%. It's just, for me, it's really the last half of the test, the content 3 and 4. And content 4, I'm pretty confident in, but I don't know what happens on the test. I always bomb that part. I was only 2 points away last time.
Keep
So
going, keep going.
that's what I'm.
LC, you're studying for LC?
Yes, LCSW.
Okay.
And I'm in California, so I can't.
Ah.
Yeah, I know. So I got to wait those 90 days before I can take it again, which is heart-wrenching.
Even with California, it's like I want to get my license there, but then every time I look at I'm like, man, I don't have time for all of
No.
that. Once I know I'm gonna once I get to California people, I'm like, okay, I do it. But you want me to take a test after I took this test?
Yeah.
You all are
No, it's not.
crazy.
It's not worth it.
So
Ugh.
if you all don't know what we're talking about, some states you have reciprocity. They're working on trying to get the compact law for us as LCSWs. Womp, womp, womp. I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
I did consultation with my peer group this morning. We get frustrated by the minute because we're spending like $300, $400, $500 on getting licensed in all these different states. Well, once
Right.
you get licensed in all these different states, every 2 years contingent on your birthday. So some of us our license renew. We got the odd years. Some of us our birthdays are even. But either way, you gotta renew every 2 years. So just and then when you do the application fees are like two to $500.
Oh, God.
Then you have to get the ASWB report pool each time you do an application. That's like another $15. Some of them want you to do another fingerprint. You're like, if I got a private practice, why the flip do I have to do a
No.
fingerprint? Then they
No.
want your transcript from your college that you graduated from. So technically, this turns into like $600, $700 per state. And we're
Right.
like scratching our head, like, do I really want to be licensed? Like, I have a client that just moved to Alaska, and I'm like, just wait because it's gonna cost like $500, and then my client moves back to Tennessee in
Right.
January. And so I'm like, look, you do know I'm a certified life coach, so we can put the therapy stuff to the side. I can do the certified piece with you all. So just so you can understand, and
Mhm.
now after you do that, every 2 years you do your renewal. you don't have all those other fees, but it's like $200 per state. So if you have
Right.
5 different license, 5 different, you're in 5 different states times 200, plus every state have different CEU requirements. So
Mhm.
that's money that you're spending too. So you got you're licensed in 5 different states, $5,000, $1,000 plus your CEUs. So we're trying to get the
Yeah.
compact law, but the compact law it's been compacting for about 3 years now. It doesn't look like it's going to
So
happen.
why is it so different for California? Why? So does that mean that once I'm licensed, I will need to do that if the compact law doesn't go through, if I want to have clients from other states?
Yes, that's what all of us are doing now. And with California, you most definitely, your chances are probably so much easier to get licensed in other states, but financially it won't be.
Financially, it won't be, yeah.
Now, here's the thing. People can go to Chicago. It's about to change, but you used to be able to go to Chicago and didn't have to go through all the rigmarole, but they're changing their laws. So every state have different laws though, but California
Yeah.
is the hardest.
Yeah, it's
New
just
York
it's
sounds
disappointing that it's a national test, it's all of these things, but for California, we can't, there's certain things that are not the same, which
Alaska the same way. I was just like, hey,
yeah.
you'll be back in January, right? Can you hold out to January?
Call me January.
So, Miss Amy, what did you get out of tonight's session? Thank you, Gloria.
Sure.
like Lori, I'm going through a lot of the same thing because I'm in New York, and New York has some pretty strict laws also. And I've had to wait 3 months in between each one of my tests. So it's been challenging. But I think one of the biggest challenges, like you were just saying a minute ago, is, taking the time for self-care. The past month at least, I've reached a fine threshold of I'm tapped out. I can't do this anymore for studying. I've been studying a lot, but to sit here as we've been studying and realizing, because what's happened is my self-confidence for the test has tanked. But to sit here and study with everybody here and to go through this and go, oh yeah, yeah, I do know this stuff. And it's helped my self-confidence. And also, the past couple of weekends, I've been literally 3/4 of my weekend is doing nothing except for dealing with my house and my dogs, and literally not even working, because sometimes I used to work on the weekends. I'm not working on the weekends. I'm focusing on different things and taking that time for me and my life. And then, stepping back to, okay, study a little bit, just a little bit. And that little bit is what's kind of helping me more than it has the last two times, I think. But I'm, I'm also feeling that moment of where I'm more relaxed. And as we're answering the questions, I'm like, okay, yeah, I do know this. And when you're saying, yeah, you've got it, and I'm like, okay, so that confidence is slowly coming. I'm also feeling that I don't feel that doom and gloom of, oh my God, I'm not going to pass. It's things are feeling different this time than they did the last two times. And, when the last two times I only missed by a couple of questions, where when I went for my LMSW, the first time I took the test, I missed by like 3 to 5 questions. I can't remember it off the top of my head. So, it's kind of the same thing going on this time, but now it's like I said, just that little bit of put my head on straight, relax, it's going to be okay. And to know that I know the information. I know there's stuff I don't know, stuff I question myself on. I still second guess myself on diagnosing and stuff like that. So it's things like that of just take the time, slow down, and just do it. It'll be all right.
Yeah, it will be. Jessica, who was on earlier from New York. And so one thing I hear everyone saying, and I teach everybody from the LC standpoint, because even if you're LM now, you got it even more. The only thing LMs won't need to know is like medication. You need to know it, but it won't be on your exam. Diagnosis, you need to know them, but it's far few between on your exam. One thing I do want to say to each of you is I'm the one who took my exam on the 13th time for my LC. I passed. I never gave up. But one thing, a lot of times with my private students, they get to hear the full story. It's a such thing as studying too much because again, you're not retaining it. I remember I was in Puerto Rico on the beach and my cousins was like, this is the nice version. They said, you got to be freaking kidding me because I was on the beach with a book. And they was like, man, if you don't go back to the hotel, you just ruined everybody's vibe. I was like, no, they was like, how much are you really retaining? And they were out in the water and splashing. And I look up like, oh, but I gotta look back down. I went I went one year and jumped out of a jet. And before I jumped out of the jet, I was like in the room studying. They was like, really? You know, like, so what if your parachute don't open? You just study for nothing. It's like, Sherry, stop. And so I had to learn self-management, like, okay, Sherry, you got to stop. And then that's why I was able to make the comment earlier. I recognized I wasn't studying. I felt like it was something I had to do, but I really was not retaining the information. I'm in Puerto Rico on a beach. I was listening to those waves. I was getting sleepy. They was throwing sand on me to make me mad. Las Vegas. I literally, every trip I went on, I had a book in my hand, and they were like, this book is taking up space in your suitcase. Then I'd be like, at the airport, can I put some of my stuff in your luggage? They're like, no, you take that book back to the car and leave it in the car. So learn self-management is what I want you all to understand because we can do too much of anything. If a person eats too much, what's going to happen? They get sick. So if you study too much, it's kind of like the same effect. But when you study, have a positive mindset. With all of my clients in private sessions, I do this introduction with them, and there's this little thing they have to read, and it's like, saying, you know, before I study, I will have a positive mindset. Basically, if you don't have a positive mindset, don't study. Or just do one question if you feel like you have to fulfill the requirement. But it's 6:11 Central Standard Time. I'm the country coach from Memphis, Tennessee. If I can do it, you can do it. Equal finality. That's a word that shows up on the exam. And what it means is we all are going to we're traveling the same path. We're going to get there, but different directions. So you could be in this group with someone, they can take their exam tomorrow and pass. You can take your exam tomorrow and not pass. That does not mean you're a failure. You fail. It just means that wasn't your time. I don't know what you believe in, who you believe in, but take some time just to talk to whoever your higher power is. If you need to study with someone who is not a social worker. You're going to see they're going to get more answers right than you. It's going to frustrate you, but it's going to challenge you. So this is the time, if this is something you really want, keep investing in yourself, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you all for joining. Remember, you won't get the stuff tonight, but you'll get it most definitely by tomorrow. I have to send everything over to admin. They'll send it to you. I'll even send the Dawn AppGuard book if you don't have access to it. The last thing that I went through is chapter 8 and done AppGuard. I would suggest if you have two smart devices or if you can split your screen, look at that. Look at what I went over tonight and look at chapter 8 in the book. It's the same material. It's just easier to read.
Okay.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Good luck, everyone.
Hey. Bye-bye.
Bye.